Hello and welcome to What's Good in Mzansi with me, your host, Jared Petzer. Today we are joined by Jamal Sahib. He is an entrepreneur. He's got an MBA, which he achieved at Gibbs University. He's a fascinating character. I got to meet him early on in this year at the launch of his book, Start with the End in Mind. And Jamal's going to be just chatting to us about where things are for him personally and just a couple of ideas around how to kickstart your business during this time and get ready for the new phase of what we're going into globally and as a country. Jamal, how are you doing, my friend?
All good. Thanks for having me, Jared. Absolutely awesome seeing you again. I think the last time that we've met face-to-face has been in November. So it's good seeing you.
Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Jamal, just give our viewers a little bit of background in terms of where you come from. I know you come from the mining industry. Maybe just tell us a little bit about that and how that led you into where you are now.
Yeah, excellent. So my undergrad degree is a degree in metallurgical engineering, and metallurgical engineering is basically an engineer that processes anything that comes out of the ground. So any element that you can think of from the time a mining engineer has blasted a chunk of the earth out, we extract it and we turn it into some sort of an element of value. So think platinum, think diamonds, think copper, think steel, manganese. So I actually worked in the space of metallurgy where I was a pyrometallurgist. Pyro means we worked with heat and we melted manganese and we produced an alloy which was then used in the steel industry. Watching my career, the next move for me would have been to move to a mine. And I moved into the mining space as a metallurgical engineer and then became a mine manager. So metallurgical engineering is quite closely linked to mining because the mining process is just the extraction of the chunks from the earth, and then the processing happens by metallurgical engineers. So what then happened for me was, as I entered mining, it was massive groups of people that you worked with, and you had to lead big teams. And quite often, mining is a tough industry. And what I learned quite quickly was I became Mr. Fix-It. And I would move into a department to fix a department or to fix an area. But I realized that it wasn't me that was fixing anything really. I had just found a way to get to people to work together to fix a department or to fix a division or to fix a strategy. And that was probably my introduction to doing stuff differently, just as compared to normal mining and metallurgy. So what I then realized was my skill was actually getting people to understand what was required and how to get them together to actually deliver what was required at the time. And I also managed to get people to understand each other and through that process deliver something that benefited the greater good. So it would benefit a department, but it would benefit the whole mine, for example, and everybody would get a production bonus. So that being said, I decided to further my studies in managing people, and I did what they called a PDBA back in 2010, which was the miniature version of an MBA. It was a postgraduate diploma in business admin, which then became a foundation for me to do the MBA, which was then the Masters of Business Administration. And I spent a lot of time starting to understand how people worked and how people thought. And as I rolled out this process in corporate and did the MBA, I realized that my greatest passion is, one of my greatest passions is actually South Africa. So I was offered a job in Switzerland, and I decided that in the blink of an eye, I actually turned down the opportunity. So I hadn't applied for anything. We had represented South Africa in a global Masters Challenge and found ourselves in the south of France in front of corporate executives from all over the world. And one of them approached me and offered me a job at the time. And for me, I realized at the time that I choose to live in South Africa because this is actually where home is. I don't want to live anywhere else because I am, as a human, I'm quite nostalgic. So if I close my eyes and I hear the sound of a certain bird, it reminds me of, for example, my childhood. And, I grew up near the Drakensberg. And I don't want to be somewhere else. I want to be in South Africa. And I also realized that South Africa has its challenges. Some of them or the ones that scare me the most are probably crime and, you know, the number of deaths that we have on our roads in this country. So I thought, well, from a crime perspective, I can add value in our country to make it a better place by creating employment. So I then opted to leave corporate and become an entrepreneur a few years ago, post the MBA. And I started my own businesses. And as I grew the businesses, I continued to employ people. Then I realized that I could do this because the definition of a business is that it should be an investment that can operate without you for periods of time. So I set my businesses up in such a way that I did not need to be there all of the time. Then I moved into the coaching space because I realized there were many small businesses out there, and in fact, medium and large independent businesses that could not afford massive expenditure in terms of consultants. So they couldn't call in a massive consulting house and spend millions with them and get advice from this consultant and help them build a strategy and to develop their people. But myself as a business coach, I then trained as a business coach, and with my skills and business acumen that I had accumulated over 10 years working for one of the largest multinationals at the time, I used that knowledge and my knowledge as an entrepreneur, and I wrote out a training program which then became known as a leader development offering that I offered to medium and large independent businesses in South Africa. Because becoming a business coach allowed me to coach other business owners to help them grow their businesses. And as those businesses grew, they employed more people. And it then gave us the exponential impact I was looking for. So I employ people directly, and I now have 3 hardware stores. My wife and I run a guest house, and I run my consultancy. So we do create jobs one-to-one. So we are creating jobs directly. And over and above that, I'm coaching large independents who are now growing their businesses, and they too are employing more people. So for me, I'm really living my dream right now because I get to impact so many people's lives through this process. So I run leader development seminars for people. And when I train for 4 reasons. I always tell people when I'm training them that I'm training for 4 reasons. The first reason is I train and I coach so that people can become better people for themselves. Because if you're a better person for yourself, you are a happier human, you are a more confident human, you can add more value in the world. The second reason that I train is so that people can be better people for their families. Because if you're a better person for your husband, or if you're a better person for your wife, and if you are a better person for your kids, and if you are a better person for your parents and your siblings, then you sort of give off this positive energy that makes them want to be better people as well. So that's the second reason that I train. The third reason that I train is that so people can be better people for the organizations that they actually work for, that puts a salary in their bank accounts, that enables them to put food on their tables, that enables them to provide education for their children. Because if they are better people for the organizations that they work for, then the organization benefits and the organization then grows and can employ more people whose lives can be positively impacted. So that's the third reason. And also because it's usually the employer that's paying me, so they need to be better people for the employer as well, right? And the fourth reason that I train is because I want people to be better people for their communities and for the societies in which they live, which is why I'm so passionate about I'm Staying. And I love the fact that you guys are doing such phenomenal work, because you guys are showcasing the amazing people in South Africa that are doing good stuff. So, and that's why I was so happy to have you at my book launch. It's because of the positive impact that you're having in this country. So let's talk about point 4. When I train for people to be better people for their communities and their society, I always use a simple example. I go, okay, so you live in a street and there's a pothole in the street. You'll find the pothole gets bigger and people complain, and the amount of time they spend on Facebook and on WhatsApp and complaining to each other about the pothole in the street, and then the pothole gets bigger, and then somebody wants to make a joke about it, so they plant a pothole into the pot well, they plant a pot plant into the pothole and take a photograph and put it on WhatsApp. And with all of that energy that we put into making a noise about this pothole, and we de-energize people, for the same amount of energy, 2 or 3 people in that community could have just got together and repaired the pothole. And the end result is that the moment a pothole comes up, somebody repairs it. We teach our kids around us good value, that even though we are not directly responsible for fixing this, we are ultimately accountable for our street because we're a community. Yes, we're paying rates, etc. But we knew there was a point in time where those things were not getting repaired. So if when the first 2 or 3 potholes sprung up, we repaired them, we would still have a road that we could drive on. But instead, we spend the time complaining and criticizing, and 3, 4, 5 months go down the line, and eventually we end up with a street that's pothole ridden that we can barely drive on. It negatively impacts our state of mind. It negatively impacts the value of our property in that street. It negatively impacts the quality of our vehicles because we damage our vehicles and the maintenance cost goes up. So the impact ends up being thousands of rands per person in the street. Whereas if we each put $50 together, or an hour of our time on a Saturday, we could have repaired the pothole. So when we train and do leader development, I truly believe that every single one of us is a leader in some way or form. If you are a parent, you are a leader in your home. If you have kids in school, you are a leader in your community, because there's the old adage that goes, it takes a village to raise a child. So every single one of us is a leader in our own right. So when I do leader development, I focus on those things that allows people to also become better people for their communities. So right now, I sit with a massive dilemma personally, because my greatest passion is South Africa, and my way of helping the country has become creating jobs wherever I can. Now we find ourselves in the middle of a lockdown where people's jobs will be impacted as a result of an economy that's coming to a grinding halt. So I've spent the last few weeks putting together webinars for business owners, business leaders, and business managers. And I'm running these webinars once a week at no charge. I run them on GoToWebinar, which is a platform that can host up to 500 people in a webinar. And I do research and I work with coaches globally. So I work with a coach in the UK, I work with a coach in the US, and we're trending and we're looking at what are some of the trends and what are things happening in different countries from a COVID perspective, and how's it impacting those economies. And yes, I understand those are first world economies, ours is a third world economy, but we're looking to see what are the similarities and what trends can we build that will help us to proactively be ready for when those things start to happen. So I've put together a webinar. I ran one last Monday. The webinar was actually called The 8 Steps to Kickstarting the South African Economy and Your Business. And it was for all business owners out there. A lot of the steps focus on, as human beings, things that we need to do to make sure that, number one, we maintain the right state of mind. And then number two, we're doing the right things so that our economy can get going as quickly as possible post-COVID, and we can reduce the impact as far as humanly possible. So the next webinar that I've set is for the coming Tuesday, and the title for it was Let's Get Going South Africa. But obviously I started to map out that webinar before the extension on the lockdown. So I'm going to postpone that specific content to a week later as we get ready to get going. And I'm building a new webinar for this week, Tuesday, which is how do we keep pushing through right now? So as I've said to some people, some people are saying it's difficult times. I'm saying it's different times. It's different times. We need to understand that it's different times, because in different times, yes, for some people and for many people, it is difficult times. But if we think of it as difficult times, that's all it will be. It will be a difficult time. But if we think of it as a different time, we can start to find innovative and different ways on how to handle this. And that's the space I'm in. I am in the space of saying, how do we push through this? How do we find those opportunities right now in the middle of this crisis where we can add value, when we can make a difference? And I mean, this show that you're running called What's Good Mzansi is a perfect example of that. As I'm saying, you guys are innovative and you've realized that people are spending more time at home right now. Therefore, quite often they're spending more time on social media. They're looking for what's happening. If we don't create the positive content and push it out there, then people will spend that time watching negative content. And so you guys are actually saving people's lives, because there could possibly people out there that would have been watching negative, depressing stuff right now, and you could possibly be saving their lives because you're creating positive content out there to showcase to people who say, listen guys, yes, it may be tough times for many people, but it is a different time. There are opportunities out there. I mean, if I take a simple look at the reduction in pollution globally right now, the world needed a reset. There's no doubt about it. We needed a reset. The planet needed time to heal. There are fewer planes in the skies, so the carbon footprint globally is reduced. There are fewer trains running. There are fewer cars on the roads. And this is globally. So we've reduced the impact. Industry has shut down in many parts of the world. So if it's not an essential item, they've shut industry down. So mining has stopped in quite a few countries. Processing of metals and minerals has stopped. There's so many things that impact the environment and the planet that have stopped. And now we are looking for different ways to achieve things. So previously I would coach business owners, but we would drive for coaching meetings. So either I would drive to my client's office or my client would drive to my office for a coaching meeting. And the last few weeks we flipped it. We're doing coaching through Skype, we're doing coaching through Zoom, and I can tell you that we will never go back to the way of doing business before. Because if you look at the inefficiencies of driving to a meeting, sometimes we spend an hour on the road for a meeting that lasts 45 minutes or half an hour. So what we've decided with my coaching clients is that post-COVID, we will meet once a month instead of weekly. Mm. The other 3 sessions we will do through Zooms or Skype. Mm. So at a minimum, we'll meet once a month, because that personal interaction is still important in this industry, because you know, I get a feel for what's going on in somebody's life when I'm sitting across the table and I watch their body language and that kind of behavior. Mm. So we are going to reduce our carbon footprint, and it was because we were forced to change. You know, there are business owners out there that I work with. Many of them are not tech savvy. They own businesses, they've been running businesses for 30, 35 years. And when you talk to them about a laptop and Zoom and Skype previously, they were like, no, that stuff's not for me. And interestingly, they're moving into that space now because there is no other option.
That's right.
So the opportunities are out there. What people need to realize is that business will never be the same again. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. That might be a good thing. Because as people get more comfortable with doing stuff remotely and using technology, we can start to do things like, instead of attending a meeting in Australia, we can Skype for that meeting, and we are more comfortable doing it now. And the money that we would have spent traveling to Australia for this business meeting, we can spend on a local trip, and we can travel to Coffee Bay, and we can travel there with our families, and we can do a weekend in Coffee Bay. And we need to start to think like that. So I would have been attending the Canton Fair in China in April, which we canceled. I would have been attending a coaching conference in July in Istanbul, which I've now canceled. So 2 of my international trips this year are canceled. And I've said to my family, you know what? Later this year, once the dust has settled, probably in the, at the back end of September, let's do a trip to Coffee Bay. We haven't been to Coffee Bay, hole in the wall. I've never been there. We're going to do a road trip, and we're going to probably spend the weekend or maybe do a long weekend, 3 or 4 days, you know, over my birthday. It's a long weekend, the 24th of September. We'll spend some time there. And, you know, in fact, I can still do a Zoom meeting with, you know, coaches in Singapore whilst I'm in Coffee Bay then, because this is becoming a part of life.
That's right. That's right. I mean, listen, the bottom line is that our efficiency levels are going to skyrocket because, like you said, you don't have the time delays of trying to get to and from meetings. We've got access to anybody, anytime in the world, and anywhere in the world within a couple of clicks of a button. You know, we've got, like you said, we've got access to Zoom, and you don't need to have these bulky overheads. I think there's a lot of things that we can take away from this that are going to really help us to streamline our businesses. Do you have to have the big rentals? Do you have to have all the office automation? Do you have to have all these travel expenses? There's so many costs that we can eradicate from our businesses and make sure our businesses are running a lot more efficiently, and also ensure that we can grow our financial leg of our business to ensure that if anything like this does occur again, that we've got sustainability. Because sustainability, we're seeing big companies now that have been around for a very long time. They've been around for 20, 30 years. They are just right on the edge of their seats with us because they've got these massive overheads. They've got all these staffing components. They've got all these bulky costs that are literally, you could have a profitable business and be shut down for 30 days, and all of a sudden your whole business is compromised. You know, it can take a business that's been in existence for a decade and it can terminate it within 30-day period. So I think there's a lot of learning to come out of this.
100%. Jared, here's, you know, I chase what I call light bulb moments. So when you and I are having a conversation, I'm looking for light bulb moments all the time, and because that's, I think, how we learn, and that's how we stretch our ability to think, is through a light bulb moment. And from what you've just said, I've had a light bulb moment, which I want to give back to you because I think you can use this to add significant value. And from what you've just said, my light bulb moment is that through this process, South Africa as a nation, we have done really, really well in comparison to many other first world countries out there. For a small country with a population of between 55 and 60 million, being third world and not having the resources that some other countries have, we've managed to control this pandemic so far reasonably well. That is a direct indication of our leadership capability as a nation, number one. Number two, the fact that we are becoming more remote means that right now we are more accessible to the rest of the world. So we can start to deliver our services globally right here from South Africa. So we need to use that as a story to the world to say, in this tough time, as a small nation, look at the leadership that has happened in this little country. And if a country has that kind of leadership, it says there are many other people in that country that have that leadership capability, and that country is now accessible because they have now learned to work remotely in this time. And we can start to deliver our service globally. We can start to coach people in other countries from South Africa. We can start to build strategic deliverables for other countries. We can start to build IT content from Stellenbosch and deliver it to the world, because people are starting to look at us differently. They're starting to look at us again as those leaders of the world that we step up in difficult times. South Africans, we are a really good, strange bunch of people, because when things get tough, we get going. Yeah. We are such a resilient bunch. Yeah. That, you know, it's time for us to showcase that, you know what, we're not only, you know, this resilient, or we're not only this innovative, or we don't only have this leadership capability in crisis. It's actually a characteristic that we carry with us all the time. We just pull it out in the time of crisis more than we do at any other given time. So that skill that's available, we as South Africans need to be using that right now to make a difference in the world. And we should, and we will be remunerated for that as well. And your skill as well, and the value you guys have added through I'm Staying. I think now is the perfect opportunity for you guys to scale that and look at options from a global perspective. How can we add value that will bring remuneration back to South Africa through this fact that, I mean, you guys have done some phenomenal stuff. What are some of the stats, by the way? You guys, I mean, when I say you guys, I mean us. I'm staying because I'm part of the group. So we were one of the fastest, I think, growing groups in Africa. Or what were some of the stats?
So I think we're the largest group of our kind globally. I don't think there's another. We're not the largest group globally, but definitely the largest group of our kind. The social movement that's managed to achieve what it's managed to achieve. Interestingly enough, we've grown by about 40% in terms of content onto the platform in the last couple of weeks with the result of this, which is a clear indicator that a lot more people are going online. And if a lot more people are going online, then a lot more business resides there. So that's a really good indicator for us. I mean, we're sitting at over 82 million engagements since launch on the 7th of September to date. So I mean, there's just a remarkable amount of content, information going backwards and forwards, and the MPC is also just unfolded, which is fantastic for us. You know, we've got the MPC. We've partnered with a number of companies from technology to youth employment. We've also focused on job creation, launching the I'm Staying Entrepreneur movement. We've got a bunch of partnerships with crowdfunding companies, social development and planning, which is very important for us because we are always, our main driver is to how do we teach people to fish? How do we make people more proficient? Yeah. How do we bring people over the line? How do we create a more equal economy? So all of these things have started to unfold, and now we've got this opportunity with this, in fact, to take that and sort of launch some level of media arm, which is very important for us because now we can take those messages and we can amplify those messages even further. So using the group to communicate and to keep that cohesive stream going, but also now to say, right, I'm having conversations with the likes of yourself and the likes of many other people. That is very interesting content. It's content that's of great value. It also creates a dynamic network. And the more we network, the more we bring people together, the more impact we're going to have in South Africa, which is phenomenal, you know. So all of these things have unfolded, and only over a period of 6 months. And this particular arm of the business is about 2 weeks old. So yeah, great adversity brings about great ideas sometimes and great innovation.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, if you look at the impact that you guys have had from a bringing people together perspective, you know, what I love the most is that it's completely diverse. You know, it's the diversity. You said over 80 million interactions on your platform in less than 6 months. In 6 months. That's right.
That's right. 82 million engagements. Absolutely phenomenal. You know, just phenomenal.
You know, from a small country like South Africa again. Here's a dude somewhere in the Western Cape in a country called South Africa, had an idea, put it out there, this thing took off. And I mean, the speed at which you had to change stuff just to keep up with what was happening at the time was probably phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, it's constantly evolving and constantly innovating, and a lot of it is very organic stuff. So you've literally got to hold on to your seat, you know, and just try and steer and navigate as best you can. That's the reality of where we are. I think a lot of businesses are going through that experience now as well. How do we pivot where we are right now and turn our business into something? And I love what you've done. You know, we might not be able to turn revenue right now, but we definitely can do a skills transfer. How do we do that? Through technology. How do we impart our knowledge and our experience on others so that others can prepare themselves and get ready for when this ends, because it will end. It's just it's not an ongoing thing. But how do we? The world has definitely changed. We're never going to go back to the way that we were. And it's so important that we have these skills transfers and you know, we serve others through this sort of thing. I mean, it's just a phenomenal time to be alive, really.
For sure. So I call that an and conversation, A-N-D. I love having and conversations because right now it's about adding value, making a difference, doing skills transfer, and building a brand.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's an and conversation right now because when it's win-win, it's sustainable. So yes, I'm doing it at no charge when I'm running webinars and working with business owners and keeping them positive and showing them the way out of this. And I'm not charging for it because I'm doing it right now because it is my responsibility right now to be able to add value in this economy. But the flip side of it is there's the brand building that happens in the background because these businesses, when they survive into the future and they need to have somebody write a strat plan for them or come in and do development for their teams, who are they going to call? They're going to call the people that helped them and added value in their worlds when they needed the help.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the abundance thinking. And I mean, for I'm Staying as well, you know, when I reached out and said, Jared, join me at my book launch and you were there, you know, the moment you guys got in touch with me and said, let's do a program, I was like, yeah, I'm there. Let's do this thing because that's how we add value in each other's lives.
Yeah.
You know, it's this abundance mindset where the more we do for each other, the more we can grow as a nation, as a society, as a community, and as an individual as well. The only time you can truly grow is if the people around you are also growing.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, that's the reality. You know, you what do they say? A rising tide lifts all ships, right? And while you're serving others, you inevitably end up serving yourself. Well, in a way, you end up serving yourself because you're transferring those skills over to other people. You're giving those people of your time. You become present of mind, like you stated just now, which is very important. And you've established these really strong networks that are going to help you to achieve your goals as well. Jamal, I mean, you've touched on the fact that we need to remove ourselves from negativity, and I think that's a vital point. What are some of the other things that we can do? I mean, you built these 8 steps. What are some of the other things that we can do to sort of get ourselves in the right frame of mind and the right position for post-COVID?
So the first step was cut out the negativity. The second one is we need to stay above the line. So there's this line that I describe, and it's called the line of the line of power. So as humans, we need to stay above this line, because above the line you take ownership, accountability, and responsibility, and a couple of other things. But we need to take ownership right now to rebuild this economy. So for those people that are sitting there saying, yeah, government needs to fix this, sorry guys and gals, I've got bad news for you. It is government's responsibility to create an environment for businesses to create employments and to drive an economy. So the reality is our president locked this economy down. He had to shut down this economy. And I respect him for that, because he put lives above money. Because if we can maintain our health and if we can save lives, if we have those two, we can rebuild an economy. But if we don't, if we lost tens of thousands of people's lives, and if people got sick, we would not be able to build an economy. So we need to understand that our president did what he should have done. He did the right thing by locking down the economy, by locking us down to reduce the rate at which the infection spread. Now we need to take ownership and accountability to rebuild this economy. So the second step is us understanding that we need to do everything in our power to rebuild this economy post-COVID. So that's step 2. Step 3 is we need to do more planning now than we've ever done in our lives before. We need to start planning for the next 3 months, for the next 6 months, for the next 12 months. And we need to break those plans down into 90-day plans, and then into weekly plans, and then into daily plans. But right now, as business owners, business leaders, and leaders in our communities, in our societies, in our homes, we need to plan now better and harder than we ever have planned before. So I know Napoleon once said, he said he planned before he went into a war. But his plan never ever worked when he went into war, because things changed. But the fact that he had spent so much of time planning allowed him to win a battle and win a war, even when things changed and his plan didn't work, because as part of the planning process, he saw what else was available and what could potentially have gone wrong. So it made him smarter, it made him wiser, and it made him more agile. So right now, yes, the world is changing so fast, and many people are saying, yeah, why should I be planning, because things are changing. I'm saying you need to be planning more now than you've ever planned before, so that as things change, you know what are some of the things that you've planned and you've come across, and how to adapt your plans so that as things change, you can still be successful post-COVID. So that's step 3. Step 4, you need to start talking money. So as business owners, we need to be talking money. We cannot put our heads in the sand and think that the storm's going to blow over like an ostrich and then we're going to take our heads out and everything's going to be fine. No, we need to start talking money. So if you are a tenant, you need to be talking to your landlord about what is his expectation from a rent perspective and what are your thoughts in that space. Because as a landlord and as a tenant, the tenant is in the business of trading. So through trading, they generate revenue and profit and they pay rent. The landlord's in the business of receiving rental income. If the tenant that's trading either a product or a service is impacted as a business owner, then the landlord should also be impacted as a business owner that's getting rental income. So landlords cannot expect tenants to pay full rent during this time. But tenants similarly can also not expect that landlords forfeit a full rent during this time. I think we need to find a space where the burden is shared between tenants and landlords. That's an example of where we need to start to talk money. We need to be talking to our suppliers. If suppliers have delivered a service for us in March and we needed to have paid them now in April, for example, if we had a 30-day account, we need to be having those conversations with them that says, listen, I can afford to pay you 50% of what I owe you because I haven't traded then. But let's also be human about this. Let's be honest. Let's not jump on this bandwagon and try and ride it for all it is and not pay people what's due to them because we have an excuse now. So I have a client that is in the hospitality industry, and she provided accommodation for a company in February and in March. And she sent out their statement at the end of March, well, in the first week of April, and said, hi guys, please find this. And their reply was, oh, we're in lockdown, we cannot pay. Now, it was a service that was delivered to you in February and in March. At least pay your February invoices. Do the right thing. And lockdown does not mean that your finance department cannot be paying people, especially small and medium business, that will shut down if they don't get paid. So I've intervened on behalf of my client, and I've contacted that company and said, guys, don't play this game. This is a dirty game. We need to be talking money right now. And yes, we understand your business is in lockdown and your cash flow is impacted. But the minimum you can do is pay your February invoices. Because post-COVID, you still need to have a relationship with us. You still have a reputation to uphold. So don't play these games. So when we start to have these conversations that say, right, let's be human here about this. People are starting to actually pay those bills for February and stuff. So step 4, talk money. Step 5, if you are a business owner, you cannot save your way into success. Yes, you need to be cutting costs right now. It's critically important, but that's not going to save your business into the future. So you need to start planning right now on how will you sell your way into success post-COVID. So the 5th step is you need to sell your way into success. Whether you are a business that sells a product or whether you are a business that sells a service, you need to either sell your product or sell your service. So cut costs as far as possible, but get ready to sell your way into success again. You cannot save your way into success.
Absolutely. On that, you know who's doing really well in that space right now? The real estate agents that I'm speaking to. They are using this time to connect and to build relationships. That's what they're doing right now. How's it going? How have you been affected? Is there anything I can do for you? And all they're doing is connecting. They are setting themselves up. They are establishing themselves. The smart agents are establishing themselves right now as the go-to person. So by the time this thing kicks off, they would have already got a substantial base. And I'd imagine that a lot of people are going to have to sell their properties. It's just a reality. There's a lot of opportunity that's going to come out of this on the other side. So it's a fantastic. I love that. I love the fact that that's it. Let's talk money and let's start selling our way right now. Let's start selling ourselves. Let's start selling our way forward. Yeah,
and I think, the way to do it is key, so don't be that guy that now sends out emails saying, I'm selling this and I'm selling that. I think you need to be compassionate right now. You need to understand that people are in a tough space. So what you really want to do is you want to keep your brand front of mind. So that when Jared is ready to buy a house 3 months from now, you are that brand that's front of his mind, that did a really great job of being compassionate and adding value, making a difference. And he's going to then buy his house through you in 3 months' time. And that's who you need to be right now, is, staying front of mind, but without hard selling. So please get onto that bandwagon selling dust masks and hand sanitizer, guys. I don't know about you, but I mean, I don't want to be remembered as the guy that was selling a dust mask for 80 Rand, when people were desperate. But you can make money, but reputation you can't make back.
That's right.
So sell your way out of it by being clever with your marketing. Number 6, communication. You need to be communicating with your people now more than you have been communicating with them ever before. So where possible, communicate. And when you don't have an answer, communicate and say to people, I don't have an answer right now. I will have an answer for you within 2 days, and try and get them an answer in that time. But communications are key. key right now, especially if you would like to keep the good people in your business post-COVID. They are going to need to help you and work with you to rebuild your business. So communication right now is key. The seventh step is, amongst every crisis lies an opportunity. So if you are in a certain industry, and let's say, for example, you are doing B2B business, there is a chance that your customer might get in trouble, and there might be an opportunity for you to buy them out. Now, I'm not saying be a scavenger right now. I'm saying keep your eyes open and look for an opportunity, because if you didn't buy your customer out, they may close down and people may lose their jobs. So there may be an opportunity for you right now to buy a business, and through that process, it would be win-win, because you could grow the size of your business by acquiring another business, and at the same time, you can save some jobs, right? You can also be looking out for some of your suppliers. Some of your suppliers might get in trouble right now, and you could potentially buy them out, because you've got a customer base, and you can get the increased margin between manufacture and retail. So you might have the opportunity to buy your supplier out. A simple example, I own hardware stores. I sell lintels. Lintels are those things that they put above the door before they put a door in.
Yeah.
So my lintel manufacturer may get into trouble. I could possibly buy my lintel manufacturer out in the next couple of months. And through my increased margin between manufacturing and retail, I could possibly help 5 or 6 people keep their jobs at that lintel manufacturing company. So amongst every crisis lies an opportunity. And step 7, look out for those opportunities. And the final one that I've requested is step 8. Step 8, a clear indication, where possible, please travel and buy local for the next 24 months. So yes, I know right now, not many people are thinking about traveling overseas, but human beings are interesting because we forget quite quickly.
Yeah.
And 6 months down the line, when things have settled, then people need to start traveling again to start, you know, the bragging rights. You know, I've visited this country and that country, and I've seen the whole world. So the bragging rights temptation is going to kick back in, and people are going to start to travel so they can start to brag again. And my plea, this is my personal plea, even post-COVID, when the dust settles, if you can try and at least do 50% of your travel locally for the next 24 months, a conscious decision that says, I usually travel overseas 4 times a year, for the next 24 months, even post-COVID, I'm going to reduce that to 2 times a year internationally and at least 2 times a year locally, so that we can boost our local tourism economy. And as I said to you earlier, I put on my bucket list Coffee Bay for later this year. And there are some parts of the Kruger Park that I want to do next year. It's places that I haven't seen that I've put on my bucket list, because that's my commitment to trying to help to kickstart the South African economy again. And where possible, there were some products and services that we were procuring overseas. Post-COVID, with the exchange rate and the dollar where it is, it may no longer be cheaper to import it or to procure that service overseas. Please, where possible, look to see if maybe you can procure the same product or service locally at a similar price. And even if it's maybe 2 or 5 or 7% more, can you procure it locally if possible to help us to drive and stimulate that economy? So yeah, I mean, obviously that you might not be able to buy a South African manufactured car, so I wouldn't expect that of you, but simple things where, you know, you can buy locally manufactured. Let's do that.
Absolutely. Listen, I mean, this is great practical advice, Jamal. Thank you so much for spending time with us. And I love that sentiment, because there's a lot of businesses that we can support that are local, even as far as going to the woman that sells vegetables on the side of the road. You know, it's fresh, you know, it's clean, you know, it's a good product, you know, that you're supporting her, you're supporting her family, and who knows who else, you know. There's so many things that we can do to support small business, and now more than ever, we have got to start focusing on supporting and looking after our own before we even consider looking abroad just to get a better deal. This is not about the better deal. This is about saving our country. This is about humanity. We've got to wrap it short. I've really appreciated our time with you, and I'd like to get you on again if you don't mind. Maybe after you've had that next training seminar, we can do a bit of a catch up.
It'll be awesome. I look forward to it.
Stunning. Jamal, tell us where can guys get hold of you if they want to connect, if they want to ask you questions, or if they maybe want to look at your services. How do they reach you?
The easiest would probably be through my website, which is www.jamalsahib.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, so if they look for me on Jamal Sahib on LinkedIn, they'll pick me up there. On Facebook, it's Jamal Sahib on Facebook as well, and on Instagram, it's @Jamal Sahib Official.
Fantastic, wonderful, Jamal. So good to see you again. So nice to chat.
Good seeing you as well, bud.
And thank you for the practical experience. I think it's really, really good advice that people can take away from this and put towards practical use. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Jared. Thanks for having me, and thanks for the awesome work you guys are doing out there. I mean, I'm rooting for you guys to just keep going and getting better and bigger and better, and just doing this crazy stuff you guys are doing. I love it. Keep rocking, man.
Take care, my brother.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.